Hi, folks, and welcome to AWOK Talk. I think we've been accused of being liars in the past, but in this case, we are liars because that said with brick something and highly articulated,
Yeah.
and that is not highly articulated. That is
Wrong.
Jason.
Hello.
What's up, man?
Oh,
Yes,
nothing
and so
much.
Jason Bienvenue, owner, creative mind behind Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, which this show's all about. Unfortunately, highly articulated, who's also with Spero, can't join us because we're recording this while he's doing his real person job. So just you and me, Jason.
All right. Party time.
So today is fairly concise. We're just here to talk today about all the things that Spero has going on, particularly some updates around the Kickstarter figures, how things have sort of been shifted around since I think originally during the Kickstarter, there was some semblance on the campaign itself saying, hey, this is coming in this wave, etc. And things have shifted. So over on the Kickstarter update recently, I went ahead and updated folks, and there was some confusion around what the actual info is. So this essentially should be the clear, definitive statement on where Spero's at. And anything Jason says today, hold him to it.
Well, I will say we were trying to really kind of get the factory to give us their good timeline before the Chinese New Year. Right. Unfortunately, like they weren't able to give us as good a layout as we had hoped. So we kind of just are going with what we understand right now. The good news is that they sent out samples of some of the figures. I know one of them is the spectral pale, so we'll get to check that out. This glow in the dark figures, we usually have to do a couple different rounds, so I'm not sure what to expect. I think it's going to be cool. Honestly, Dave has like higher expectations than I do. Like I'm just normally like, that's cool. And he's like, no, it needs to be better.
So Dave, if you're not familiar, is the Spero Toys project manager.
Correct. Yeah.
On the factory side. Cool.
Dave Proctor, legendary sculptor, Hasbro veteran. Really just absolutely amazing knowledge base of figure articulation, plastics, sculpting, painting, all around just fantastic. And then he also mentioned they're sending like random parts for the brawler body, so that'll be really cool. He didn't say the body; he said random parts from the brawler production. So it might be weapons, it might be like hands or something. I have no idea until it gets in on the 28th.
Right, you already mentioned sort of Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year when things shut down, so people right around now are rushing. It's really too late, right? Because in a little bit,
they're
going to shut down, and they're going to shut down for a while. Yeah, they're shut down for a while, and then things kick back up. So, I'm sure people who follow this kind of stuff already are familiar enough with like, oh yeah, we get it, things slow down. But then let's shift now to talk about what's actually sort of happening. So this is from the Kickstarter. And I want to like get ahead of it and just sort of name that this is what was there originally, right? This is the wave delivery release schedule that the Reptile Warriors and the Brawler Warriors would come fall 2024, followed by the Female Warriors and Speedster Warriors in spring of 2025. We wanted to communicate that as best we could, right? It was all estimates. I also want to remind people that in that process, you were also still producing like series 1 effectively. So you still had plans for the figure come out.
Yeah.
So yesterday was an AWOK Wednesday. And I went ahead and posted actually first was
funny.
First was let the AWOK Wednesday updates resume. Want to let folks know that, as I mentioned there, for about 60 days, like I think I posted right before the Thanksgiving holiday, and then holiday kicked in, and then where I work, things get crazy up until the end of the semester. Yeah, so we're back. We're going to be doing the regular Wednesday updates, so keep looking out for those over on the Kickstarter. But in this, not only did we share this that we already went through with Adam over on the Monkey Business live stream, but we posted the real like super rough draft version, talked about it.
Right.
like, okay, let's go. Oh, there's typos, but we're like, oh man, we haven't talked to folks in 60 days.
And what's interesting about that 60 days is we were at a convention and Dave mentioned like, hey, we're starting, we've kind of like vetted all the stuff for the brawler bodies and everything. And they're essentially, we think they're too small. We think they're smaller than what you are anticipating and what the fans are anticipating. So, he's like, I'm going to send you what my recommendations are. And then I had to get on a flight and I was like,
I think that was like right before Legion's Con, because I remember when you got them in hand,
it was like right
at
before
Legion's Con,
right, yeah.
And you realized, oh yeah, these are smaller.
Yeah. So I get on the flight, on the connecting flight, the images come through, and he's like, these are the sizes that I'm suggesting, and I agreed with him. The one in the middle, I was like, the one in the middle looks just right. It's not overly too big. It's like just enough to give it, what we had anticipated it being. And I can send those images over for you to check out.
I was going to say, could we show that at some point?
But you know what? We'll do it maybe the next update. So essentially we had to scale up all that tooling. It was either like 8 to 10%. So that means like everything that you technically vetted, you have to kind of start over again. It's not a complete start over, but you have to go
there's
through.
Changes. There's massive changes because everything's scaled
exactly.
up.
I remember some of the challenges from the first Kickstarter with the first 6 figures. It was really hard for us to dial in those butterfly joints. And I say we, but the factory is what's doing that stuff. And it's very challenging and difficult to kind of get it just right. And we want our wave or series 2 stuff to feel just as good articulated wise as what we've put out already, so we have to kind of go around and revet all that stuff. And that's where we were right before Legion's Con. And it seems like a lot of the tooling's done now. So I'll get to see what they send over, what's randomly coming through, like all the disc joints and all that stuff. That's the part of the tooling that is the most time consuming, the part that they really have to dial in, because that's going to basically determine, like, is it going to feel good? Is it going to move good? Is it going to flop over? So that's essentially the last part of the tooling that will get done.
Is it safe to say that Dave, because of his background, his experience, is making a lot of those calls like for you and like saving
for sure,
a lot of
time for sure.
Enough. That's great.
And one of the things that's just awesome is sometimes some of the sculpt and stuff gets you kind of lose detail, and he goes back in and makes sure all that stuff carries through to production.
Nice.
So that's just an amazing asset. Dan Mitchell and Arlen Peltier and I were talking about that, how, like not every factory has a project manager that can do that. A lot of times Dan and Arlen will have to go back during production for like a figure and retouch up stuff that gets kind of like chewed up and eaten up when they're like adjusting the articulation and whatnot. Just a little bit of the sausage making,
Because you have someone there, they can actually catch some of those things, and it limits some of the delays. Yeah. But as you pointed out, sizing was an issue. That was something that had to be addressed. That helped, that's part of what's slowing things down. And so let's talk about the schedule now. So we did upload this first rough version, and it truly, truly was rough. If you click on it now, it opens up actually the sort of newer version, which brings us to this update, because it was like really late last night.
It's such a funny title.
On the West Coast, because I was like, whatever, it's still, so here we go.
This looks awesome, by the way.
High five to both of us, because we both worked on this. But when you click on that now, folks, you see this document. So winter 2024, right, was where we were at, and we're moving in through the new year. And so right now we're sort of on production. And then this actually goes, for those of you who took the time to look at this and are looking at it now, this takes us all the way through summer of 2027. And if you notice from the top, this is the estimated production timeline for both AWOK and Bushido. So it's all Spero stuff. So this is everything. And I think that's important to point out, because some people are like, hey, man, I'm just here for the AWOK Kickstarter. I don't care about Bushido. But you got to realize that as a toy company, they're working on other things, sculpting all of the paint masters and the factory. So Now you have to slot it in here. I'm curious though, how have you and the team adjusted to the reality that you're not only working on the one toy line now, and how did that kind of affect your overall schedule and stuff?
I mean, it's exciting. We're really excited about it. Funny, I was talking to someone about how different personality types react to different IPs and whatnot. And I was saying, I love the Lord of the Rings, and someone could say, well, what's all the members of the Fellowship? And I couldn't tell you every single one, but I still love the movie. Like my brain just doesn't work that way,
Right,
and the reason I say that is because like I love like feudal Japan and like samurai and like Japanese folklore and stuff. But it's in a very different way than Dan loves it. Like he's got like this like really vast like knowledge of it. And I've got like this romanticized, like this makes me feel good or makes me like creeped out or scared. So it's a very different kind of like passion for the same subject matter. We both love toys, and it's very interesting to see how he is articulating them, especially like the knees and stuff. And there were people that were kind of asking about, hey, the bounty hunter's got this ab crunch, but the samurai doesn't. And, we were kind of pointing out that like, with that kind of armor, you couldn't actually do the same kind of ab motion. They don't have the same amount of motion that you would, as a bare chested person. Interesting, kind of like dipping our toe into like a more realistic look. The AWOK figures are very much, supposed to be 3D representations of the comic book characters. So it's really cool to kind of expand our portfolio. Towards the end of this summer, we'll probably start trying to go and try to license other IPs. So we'll see how that goes.
If you do land a license from landing at signing papers or whatever, how long of sort of like development, whether it's conceptual development, sketching and all that, before it starts to impact factory time?
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be something like a, 4 to 6 month type of negotiating with like going back and forth and stuff like that. And I'm not necessarily wanting to do an action figure IP right out the gate. I kind of want to do something a little bit more like blind bag figures, like a little, or maybe like a keychain type of thing. That type of things like, I kind of want to do stuff that I want. And we'll talk more about what it is that I want to do, like off the record, so to speak.
Yeah, no, but that's exciting that you're looking at other one licenses to kind of figure out that world, but then potentially something different. That's cool. Yeah. That's really cool. Okay. So that said, it's probably not a ton that's going to affect actual sort of design work in the same way or production work. However, it will mean someone, likely you, will be spending a lot of time in meetings and doing all that, which will obviously have some effect on capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we've got our entertainment lawyer. We'll do that type of stuff. And he'll probably mostly just be giving me cliff notes. Explain it to me like a 5-year-old.
All right, so then let's go ahead and break down this timeline. Folks can read it on their own, but I'll make sure that the links are in the description here if you didn't. But this was the other thing that we published last night. So this goes back to the beginning and estimated deliveries of all those figures. Effectively, there's a lot of similar information here, except for this obviously has the Bushido stuff, and it's a little bit more visual in terms of timeline. You can see overlapping stuff, but for the purposes of the conversation, and if you're the kind of brain that I am and I need to see pictures, let's go over here. And let me start by highlighting the first time that we got figures in hand with that original buck was not too long ago, actually, in March 2023. And so far we've seen, it is wild. If people are wondering, like, how do the waves break down? Those first figures would be Primal Series 1 with their waves, and then Primal Series 2 is the Kickstarter moving forward. So you got Primal Series 1, Wave 1 were these figures, as you're sort of seeing, and you'll notice they're all, as it points here, on buck type. All the original buck type, like pale. Then you had some headsets in that, coming through. Then we head down to Wave 2, Primal Series. First time we introduced a bigger buck, the Bruiser buck. And then you move back to a bunch of original figures, which are awesome. You got the Ancients in there and a couple of headsets. Then there was the third wave and this was winter 2023 for those keeping track. That's all over here. That actually mixed again the original and then another example of a bruiser. So it was winter 2023. Gosh, this first year was wild, man. There's a lot coming.
I know, right? It was, yeah.
It's a lot more than you, in hindsight, than you realize in the moment, because we're collectors and we're like, where's the next thing? I stop here because
it's funny.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because a lot of someone had mentioned. I saw someone mention in the comments that like we kind of lost a little bit of steam, and I kind of thought to myself, I was like, well, we didn't put wave out. Like there was a big gap between wave 3 and 4, but we were definitely working on all kind of stuff. But yeah, there was a delay, and
which is interesting. I'm sure that's got to be, yeah, it's got to be interesting for you as a toy maker to sort of think about, like, how do I anticipate some of that, and how do what would be the ideal release amount before people are overwhelmed,
right?
Or
well, one of the real challenges was before we moved everything to Fulfill Right, we literally had like no room to put wave 4. So we just were kind of like, what are we going to do? And then Adam reached out to Ben Conway, and we got all set up at Fulfill Right, and that solved the issue.
Beautiful.
But anyway.
Yeah, so that's great. You're figuring things out along the way. Here's that. I stopped here because, again, you did a bruiser, and I think this was interesting because this was a PowerCon figure exclusive, which, again, one of those many things that kind of wasn't necessarily planned for.
Exactly.
But pops up, and you have the flexibility at this point, especially if it's a, in this case, kind of reuse.
Right, for sure.
To do
100% reuse, with the exception of the leather whip, which is not tooled up, so that's a huge deal.
And then we move on to the rest of wave 3, and then you kick into wave 4, which actually just popped up fall 2024, not too long ago, like right around Legion's Con, right beginning of November.
Yeah.
And so that was these figures, and these figures are great. I know that we were kind of talking beforehand, and there's a lot of response to these, particularly Ahokin and the Mongrel, right?
Like
both of those.
And one of the things with like talking about delays and stuff is like this was originally supposed to be wave 3. And then we wanted to do the board game, which we thought was going to be really fun and awesome, and people would be excited about it. And we needed army builders for that game to work correctly. So we kind of switched stuff around.
I see.
And then the board game didn't wind up getting produced because there just wasn't enough demand for it. Now, that being said, I think it's because it was a brand new IP. Like if we were doing like a Ninja Turtle board game, I think it would have been just fine. Of course, people are going to back Ninja Turtle shampoo for Pete's sake.
Right.
But what's nice about it is, it doesn't have an expiration date, so we can always try it again later. But this was essentially supposed to be wave 3, just talking about how like stuff can be kind of flexible and moved around a little bit.
Yep. So this brings us now to the Kickstarter. So you were saying about different bucks and everything, and because I was asking you, why is Reptiles now moved to its own separate wave 2, but now we're kind of hitting here, and this is all blue, and you'll notice, folks, that this actually doesn't say Primal Series 2. This effectively is the end of Primal Series 1 with the Enter the Void wave 5, and that consists of these 3 figures. But so, it is in the blue. Can you break that down?
Yeah. So one of the things that we learned doing the first production was to try not to do more than 4 SKUs per production. And the first wave was 6 figures, and then the second wave was, I want to say it was 9 figures. So, which is tough. It's tough on the factory. Like all those, the SKU, we look at that Necro Armor Pale as one essentially just one figure, but they're in bins, just these bunch of bins of like thousands of little parts. So that's all kind of stuff they got to keep track of. And then you have to worry about like, is there going to be errors? Like, it takes a lot for the factory to do all that stuff. So
if you do more than 4 full figures, you're multiplying that by the parts, and it's potential for
Yeah,
Got
it adds to like the quality checking, all the packaging, all the production, the parts and everything allotted. So without all that being said, and not wanting to like be so insanely off of our fall 2024 original estimate, we thought, listen, I think there's going to be like 9 figures in wave 1 or this production, because it's wave 5 and wave 1 of series 2.
Yes. So to clarify, it's the last wave of Primal Series 1, these 3 figures, and you'll notice the blue continues and starts to kick into these wave Primal Series 2 wave 1 brawlers. So so tell us a little bit about the decision to merge it all and then leave the reptiles for the next wave.
Yeah, so just the logistics involved in it just made much more sense to get everyone 9 figures relatively sooner than adding on 3 more figures to that production. In turn, now it's 12 figures, so it's literally 3 times more than what the factory is normally comfortable doing SKU wise. So what does that mean? It means that it's going to cause each wave after that to be pushed back a little bit off of what we had initially planned out. Is that a bummer? Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. But the thing that I like about it is when you go into the subsequent waves after this, if you look at it, it's a lot of waves of 3 figures. And to me, I look at it and think, oh, good. That means I can slot in another figure that wasn't in the Kickstarter and that no one's seen before. So, we'll have a delay with the reptiles, but now you're going to get another figure that you haven't seen before. And you're like, oh, whoa, this is a brand new figure. So
that is something that you're saying is not a hypothetical. That is something you're actively trying to make happen, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay. So you know that's an option. We're not holding you to it.
It's an option. Yeah. I haven't shown it to the factory or anything yet. I have all the parts printed out because, this Kickstarter, we made a really great set of like awesome new parts. And I'm like, I want to play around with this new sandbox. I want to play around with these new parts. So I've got stuff printed out and kind of like, I need to paint it, but I'm working on other stuff right now. I'm doing paint masters for the space zombies, and we got to get that stuff done before I play around with, stuff that's further out.
Right.
But yeah, so if you look, the lizards, there's going to be a slot. We can put a figure in there. And then the females and the speedsters, I don't know if we're going to do that because that's 6 SKUs. So I don't think there's going to be an opportunity to do it with that one. But then if you look at the birds, there'll be another opportunity to add something in there.
Can I ask you a question though?
Sure, of course.
You're saying SKUs, but do the accessories not factor in the same way? Because technically,
that is technically a SKU, but I don't count them. And I want Dave
because
to not
a different level of complexity.
Right. The figures is what I consider, a legit SKU because of the complexity of it. You've got 3 different types of plastic and all kind of different colors going on. So I really just look at the figures and count that as a SKU. The weapons there's a lot of stuff going on in there and it's a challenge, but to me, it's not on the same scope or scale as a full-fledged action figure. Which again is why I want to do something like a keychain or a blind box for our first like IP that we are able to go after.
Nice.
The turnaround time won't be insane, and the expectations won't be the same as like a full-fledged action figure. As
far as the lizards right now, it's going to be 3 figures and the accessories. So that becomes your Primal Series 2, Wave 2, estimated fall, winter of 2025. I quickly glossed over this and I did add it. It wasn't in your original sort of like timeline, the visual timeline. But Felonious somehow gets there. And so it slots into these. And a lot of it has to do with, as you pointed out, like this is where all these brawler buck is going to be. So they're sharing parts. Is that right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Correct. Yeah. And it's essentially just a full-on repaint of King Hannibal. It's got they come with alternate heads, so he's just got that alternate head as his default. You know, I don't, if I had to take a guess, he might actually arrive slightly before the rest of the production, because they'll probably have to air freight that to make the convention. Well, who knows? I don't know. It's a little far out at this point, but it's going to be for Joe Lanta.
Joe Lanta, okay.
Which is in October.
Because for some reason, I feel like on PGG, I'd heard that it was not going to be happening.
The confusion started with, we made the debut at Joe Lanta last year, 2024. And there was a sign that said Toy Lanta on it. And we weren't thinking, we were just like, it was during the middle of the hurricane.
Okay.
And we wanted to put it inside this big giant Castle Grayskull. Me not paying attention to like the signage. I was just like, oh, this is cool. He's in Castle Grayskull. I was like taking pictures of it and had like the Toy Lanta sign on it. Everyone was rightfully so was like, oh, cool. This will be for Toy Lanta. And I was like, wait, no, that's not right.
Okay. Sorry. I thought there was going to be a delay. Fine. Got it. So the confusion was, it was never intended for Toy Lanta.
No,
it wasn't. It was
intended
for Joe Lanta, and it's still sort of on track for that.
Correct.
Got it. Duh. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That helps.
No, I'm glad we brought it up. It's, you know.
Well, because of time, let's see if we can just sort of jam through. I think that's the main thing. Like that first delivery is going to be a huge delivery of a bunch of figures. Will there be any spacing that you're trying to do to be like, we're releasing Primal Series 1, Wave 1 separately, pausing, and then going with the Kickstarter? Or are you just going to have them all available at the same time?
I'm thinking we're probably going to ship them all at the same time.
I think that's great. I think it's going to feel really overwhelming for some people, and they're going to be but I think there's also going to be this like, holy crap, this is amazing.
It's a great point. My personal recommendation is when I get like 5 or 6 figures, I open one up a day until I'm done with them. Just kind of enjoy them like a nice meal, a nice supper each night after a hard day of work. Open up your new AWOK figure, or your Savage Crucible figure, or your Battleverse, or your 4 Horsemen.
Then next summer, 2026, is when we're looking at the Heroines and Speedsters still combined. Again, a larger assortment of figures. We're going to get 2 different body types, the female body type and the Speedsters. And then looking out to winter and spring 2026, we're looking at the birds, the avians. Right. So Primal Series 2, Wave 4. God, that I'm still looking at that raving. It's dope. And we got Meryl. We got Scathing. Now, here's where it gets a little wonky per what I had done and reported last night. Yeah. But to be real clear for folks, that brings us to 4 waves. I had misinterpreted and misreported that, Wave 4 is going to be Mamba by himself, and then Wave 5 is going to be Zwar and whatever, because I didn't realize the lizards and reptiles and work together.
I mean, anyway, not your fault. It's confusing,
Fair enough. And thank you. But here, Mamba and the Pachydyne basically will be their own wave. Again, 3 figures. Yeah. Giant Mamba, and then 2 of the sort of smaller heavy buck versus the giant buck.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I've heard from you, like, this is very much a question mark, because this is new territory, much larger box says, right? Mamba will be even bigger than the other 2. So am I right to kind of put a big asterisk and say you're still not sure if this is totally going to be one wave?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. What the factory might want to just do Mamba, and then if that happens, what I would like to do is for Zwar and Vitus is to sneak in 2 other SKUs. So you might get some kind of part reuse of like the Pale Buck with some like new characters, maybe some more canines or something to that effect. Yeah. So that way you're still getting 4 figures in that wave, and you're getting all brand new characters, but you'll probably get a little bit of part reuse with like I said, like with the Pale Buck or the original Buck.
Interesting. So there's still some wiggle room. There's still some possibility. So just to end again, here is the graphic. I'll put the URL for both this graphic and the sort of website spreadsheet thing The nice thing is both of these are dynamically, like we can update them. So using the same links. So
sure, yeah.
So like actually I had to make some changes on this one from when I actually published it.
Yeah.
But so we can do that. You're in the place now in your company where you can say for the next 2 years, basically, I can tell you what's coming out.
Yeah, which is awesome. You know,
Amazing.
a lot of, I mean, it's cool seeing like March 2023 is when we got wave 1 in. So we're still relatively new. A lot of people like hold us.
You're totally a lot of people new, real quick.
I mean, they hold us to the like the 2020 or the 2017 like 4-inch scale, which is fair. But I feel like we didn't really come into our own until this wave 1 it was in hand in March 2023. So I feel like that's our like official grand opening or launching of the company. So that's my thoughts on it. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm so excited about what we're doing. And we had talked a little bit before we started about people asking about Diamond and issue 5. It's shipped, or it's gonna arrive on the 29th. But we can go into more detail about it on the live one.
So if you were wondering, issue number 5, it is arriving to Diamond, so it should hit per the release schedule, whatever that is. They are filing for bankruptcy. They're essentially restructuring, but in the meantime, it's relatively business as usual. Just look out for that. And again, the last thing is like looking at this schedule. Part of this is like we're collectors, so we're a finicky bunch. It's a double-edged sword to know exactly what's coming from this company for 2 years. On the other hand, people might be like, well, I'm a little bored because I know exactly what's coming. And I just want to reiterate what Jason said. No, there's some potential there that
we've got some surprises in store. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's great, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey,
absolutely.
Thank you as usual for taking the time to sit in and do some AWOK. I hope this is useful. Let us know in the comments. Tell us what you need, what information is helpful. And in general, what are you looking forward to? What are you excited about? And you heard Jason, there's wiggle room for some surprises. If you could tell Jason what you think he should do in those slots.
I like ideas. So
yeah,
that's how the scathing alternate head came about.
Right. Let us know in the comments. Do the like, do the subscribe, all of those things, and look out for our next session of Monkey Business AWOK Talk Live over on the Highly Articulated channel, where you get to see Adam again. He's still a part of it. All right, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. Let's go ahead and end this with an ending video. Bye-bye.